Thanks for the introduction. My name is Richard Hess. I am the Global Immersive Experiences Lead for Nestle. I work with a lot of our brands and markets, R&D centers and innovation centers around the globe to help industrialize emerging XR technology. And today, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about kind of what's been going on the XR front at Nestle for the past 6 months or so, from the beginning of the year to the impact that the coronavirus pandemic has had and pivoted some priorities for us. So with that being said, kick it off. And just a kind of a high level overview of Nestle in an average day. Every day we create and have around 1 billion products created within our factories. We sell them in 190 markets or countries around the world, and we make them in around 413 factories. So Nestle, being the largest food company, is massive in scale. And when you're looking to industrialize emerging technologies within our company, there's a large impact of where it can be leveraged and used around the globe. And 6 months ago, or towards the beginning of the year, how we were organized, and I showed this slide at AWE-EU, was more around the following. More mature on our side was things like using augmented reality for marketing, sales, or e-commerce use cases. So having something like consumer AR, reaching consumers wherever they are on a mobile device, any channel, whether it's web, social, or app, being able to engage them with an augmented reality experience. Or using AR preview, or allowing consumers from an e-commerce perspective or sales reps as a kind of AR sales tool to view different products, objects, or machines in their physical space, either at home for a consumer or at a business for a sales rep trying to sell more industrialized or industrial coffee machine. And we were looking to kind of expand strategic focus in 2020 was more in the enterprise space, which we have been doing a lot of experimenting in for a number of years, a number of different use cases. But where we were seeing a lot of traction and opportunity to industrialize was more around use cases such as AR work instructions or remote assistance and VR for training and onboarding. So expanding into enterprise, as I said with those 3 use cases, was looking at things like remote assistance for having experts guide people on, say, a factory floor or warehouse floor on troubleshooting different machines or different tasks, usually through a mobile device or smart glasses, or using work instructions for guiding employees through complex tasks for the first time or for kind of a troubleshooting mechanism. We're using VR for training and onboarding new employees, or upskilling current ones for a new task or skill, and having a very high engaging channel. This was kind of our focus area, where our starting point, moving into 2020, of where we wanted to kind of industrialize within the year. And as we're doing kind of discovery and landscaping, we were kind of seeing this common theme where we had a number of different experiments or projects that were looking at these use cases. And oftentimes it was the same exact kind of experiment or use case, say using remote assistance through smart glasses in factory in Singapore, the same experiment in Germany, and the same one in the US. And what we're seeing is often we were repeating the same experiment over and over and kind of reinventing the wheel and not taking the lessons learned and applying it to other areas of the organization. And we are also seeing that we're working with a lot of different vendors in this space that supported enterprise AR and VR. And we were kind of, again, paying the same amount of kind of setup costs every time for these type of experiences. And we were looking at, say, more VR for onboarding, training, work instructions. There's a lot of area of interest. It was kind of warming up, but certainly what was on fire was the remote assistance. It was the one that was getting the most traction. And we thought, based on this, we were kind of ready for rollout for remote assistance. With the ROI had been proven, all the feedback and reporting we had gotten from different markets that have done experiences was successful was leading to real savings, like the examples below. And if we looked across the industry, you know, there were mature products that existed out there. If you looked at across the CPG industry, a lot of our competitors or different companies in that space were leveraging this type of use case at scale. And there were a number of companies out there that had mature products that could be taken off the shelf and rolled out for these use cases. So looking at it from a planning perspective, we essentially had this notion that, you know, we should stop experimenting and we should start moving towards adoption. And we figured that, you know, for the whole calendar year of 2020, you know, this gave us time to kind of tackle this and do that. So, you know, concluding the different proof of concepts and experiments that we have done, start kind of defining requirements, identifying pilot markets, and ultimately selecting 2 to 3 global partners that we felt had capabilities to cover all of our use cases in this space and start to roll that out. However, that kind of planning and timeline changed very rapidly when the coronavirus pandemic started to speed up. So, you know, starting at the end of February, you know, Nestle and other large companies started issuing travel bans for both their internal employees and their external partners that they worked with. And February 27th was a Thursday. And very quickly, we got the message from leadership of, well, we're now in this situation where people can't travel. They still need expert help and support in order to do their day-to-day jobs, especially in factory production lines where if troubleshooting went down, they didn't have an expert there that could come visit to fix it. You know, that creates a large problem. So our timeline of, you know, 1 full year was really condensed where, hey, by Monday, we need to start communicating a plan to these locations so they can continue to operate. And we really kind of looked at it as, you know, leveraging this remote assistance from a business continuity standpoint. We needed to ensure that with the increased demand that was going to come of, say, people buying a lot of their products in supermarkets now, sometimes stockpiling, sometimes buying online, there was going to be much more pressure and demand on our factories to continue to produce products as well as stay open. So, you know, this had the potential to significantly impact us. And particularly on things where internal experts or within the company or external with our different partners from machinery manufacturers and factory technology companies, where they required things like auditing, troubleshooting, factory acceptance testing. This was a situation that needed something to address that. And to mitigate this, what we looked at to say is, okay, how we've done a lot of experiments in this space, how can we leverage some of these off-the-shelf remote assistance solutions that can provide that remote guidance when you can't be there physically? You know, how can we provide these globally to all of our markets? And there was this sense of urgency that we needed to do this as soon as possible and get this type of solutions out there. So we took a task force approach of essentially saying, you know, getting the right people from the manufacturing side, the engineering side, the technical production side, the IT side, put them together and start to define, you know, what we were going to do to support our markets and factories in this space, and kind of leaned on these specific use cases. One for the remote assistance for troubleshooting, so having a remote expert guide these factory floor technicians on the ground through a mobile device or smart glasses, and work instructions for machines that enabled employees either through augmented reality, a mobile device, or mixed reality headset, or more of a step-by-step overlay for smart glasses to you know, help them understand how to work machines when the expert couldn't physically be there. And we were able to kind of go from starting from an area where we're still kind of defining and discovering to deploying actual solutions in the space within 2 weeks. And anybody that's worked with a company as big as ours or worked inside a company as big as ours know that to start from essentially kind of a very early part of the process to having something that has passed all the kind of legal, compliance, security, vetting and being able to be used is a very Herculean task. It's light speed being able to do it that fast. So that was something that the business continuity really kind of addressed for them. And we had kind of a two-phased approach for how we wanted to tackle this. First was having, these short-term solutions available immediately that could be consumed and very quickly and help for the day-to-day tasks. And I have an asterisk there because I wanted to convey that it wasn't just us saying, here's the global solutions, now use these. There were some markets that had solution partners, or they were able to leverage a local partner to do that. We weren't so much worried about them. If it was working for them, that was fine. We were more worried about somebody that didn't have any solution at all and being able to help them with that. The second phase was, and it was ongoing now, is to say, okay, for the next 6 months, how do we continue to test specific use cases outside of the obvious? How do we continue to kind of update our landscape of global solutions and really kind of shortlist, top contenders or where we're seeing the most traction, and being able, around a October or going into Q4 standpoint of reevaluating the demand post-pandemic. So with the assumption that by then we'll come back to some area of normalcy, and then see, if anything has changed when it comes to usage. Like, has this become just an evolution of our kind of day-to-day reality that remote assistance is going to play a bigger role, or will travel come back, and essentially say, okay, is there an appetite for a long-term solution here? And if there is, who are we going to strategically partner with down the line to make this happen? And just wanted to show a few examples of some of the remote assistance in action. So this first one comes from our Wengen factory in Switzerland. And it's showing kind of a direct assistance from an engineering expert to somebody on the factory floor, this time through a mobile device. So being able to kind of have the direct video, being able to pause it, put some overlay, draw things on top of that. It's a very, very simple use case, but it's quite effective when it's put into practice, and able to ensure that the factory floor employee gets all the help that he needs in order to do his day-to-day job and keep those machines online. The second one comes from our research center in Lausanne. But it was looking at how to use augmented reality for helping the installation of new machines. So this machine is a homogenizer, and you can find it in a lot of our different factories. So to take a look at this and being able to use augmented reality overlaid onto the machine of different tasks, such as operating the machine, troubleshooting the machine, cleaning and sanitizing the machine, etc., and being able to deploy this at scale to a lot of different factories that have this machine. The third use case is coming from our product technology center in the UK, and around supporting global factories. So the people that sit in this product technology center are experts on specific factory machines and different tasks, and advise different factories on how to operate these machines, help them in the setup of new production lines, being able to guide them through the new lines being operated. Often are traveling to these locations to help audit and to help kind of approve their kind of first usage. So being able to use remote assistance to help with those tasks in scenarios where they can't physically travel themselves in order to get it done. And just a note as well, because he's spending a lot of time on enterprise, but there were other impacts to other immersive technologies as well. If we go back to where we were more mature, beginning of the year, things like consumer augmented reality, we did see a bit of a downtick in usage when it came to AR campaigns related to things like promotions, where a lot of brands would probably step back from a promotional standpoint of view when they can't effectively advertise in this type of environment. Things like social AR was suspended a while from Facebook for Facebook and Instagram. But we did see when people interacted with this content, there was a high level of engagement. So people stuck at their homes or couldn't travel, when they did have access to these type of experiences, they were using them a lot. For AR preview, we did see a higher uplift on the e-commerce side of things, where being able to, when you're not able to physically go to a store to look at a machine, the next best thing is augmented reality. And we did see a lot of usage on that. The last one for VR for training and onboarding, we did see a high opportunity of leveraging this type of content to educate people remotely, but there were some concerns around first-time usage. If they've never experienced VR before, were they going to be savvy enough to leverage the technology, and even things where in certain factory locations where people, were kind of still around other people, how would you sanitize these devices to make sure that you're potentially not spreading any of the virus as well? And just a deep dive on something like WebAR for e-commerce, being able to view certain machines in your home, this example being Nescafe Dolce Gusto. What we were seeing was in April, the increase of implementing on this on some of our websites. We're seeing 121% increase in views versus 2019 total views of WebAR experiences. So there does seem to be a very large appetite for engaging with this type of content when you can't physically travel to buy these devices or see these machines. And on the horizon, looking to roll this out to other brands for coffee, such as Nespresso, and water dispensers through some of our Nestle Waters business is where we're kind of moving in this direction. So the three takeaways that I have, for what's kind of transpired within the past few months is, the accelerated adoption. It was something that was going to happen. We feel we were going to start adopting these technologies more at scale, but within the past 2 months, it's really condensed timelines, and and there's been a lot of more demand for having these type of immersive solutions be available from both a consumer and enterprise standpoint. The changing behaviors, we're already seeing trends from kind of leadership and some of the kind of employees and partners that we work with, where we do think things like using remote assistance more often and less travel is going to be kind of the new ways of working, and how we're going to see a lot of companies practice this moving forward. And last is more on what I would call holistic validation. So I think for a lot of people in this industry and people in my position in companies like Nestle have been advocating for things like remote assistance, AR work instructions, VR for training, AR for e-commerce. And it's just kind of validated in this scenario, this crazy time, that there is a lot of value added to that, and potentially a lot of staying power when things do get back to a bit to normal. So that was kind of a key validation for us that we're on the right track, and using AR and VR is potentially the future of work. So that was just a bit about what's going on at Nestle. Thank you for kind of attending and coming, and I would open it up to any questions at this time.
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. It's interesting to find out about what Nestle's thinking about, and obviously the impact of our current situation, how that is accelerating things. And I think we're seeing that across the board, where the early adoption was around ROI, and now we have a whole new kind of factor into that consideration. So it's certainly interesting to see how Nestle is accelerating their adoption of this technology. So there's a few questions from our listeners. The one question was, what product is Nestle using for remote assistance? So is it a third-party software program, or you mentioned some off-the-shelf things? Can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we're not developing any, say, proprietary software ourselves. We're partnering with people that have built products around this, have built businesses around this. So, if we were all there at AWE this year on the floor, you could probably point to more than half of the enterprise kind of AR remote assistance and work instructions companies. We've probably done an experiment with them in some capacity around the globe. We're obviously very large company operating worldwide. So we have a lot of opportunities to try out different factories, giving them some autonomy to test this stuff. But really, in the past few months, we've kind of short-term strategically targeted a few companies. One of them being, as you could have seen on the videos, one of them was XM Reality. They're based out of Sweden. Another one was Scope AR. I think somebody in the comments guessed that right. But there are a lot that we're continuing to kind of take a look at, partner with more regionally or locally, continue to assess. And as I was saying before, we think really this is more of a long-term play for us. We think this is how we're going to start working more across the board and travel less, kind of not travel as much to these factories, reduce our carbon footprint, be more efficient, bring down costs, all the things that come with this. So as we continue to do remote assistance in a post-COVID world, I think we'll continue to partner with companies in this space.
So maybe one more quick question. I know we're running a little bit short, but have you explored, head-worn displays or, options around allowing them to conduct the same type of work remotely but hands-free, in a more augmented, vision, allowing them to not necessarily have to hold up a tablet and conduct their workflow or get instructions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really the approach we're trying to take is one of a hardware agnostic. So essentially, move towards something which is bring your own device right to work scenario. So we're looking both at say smart glasses and mixed reality headsets like a HoloLens 2 or something along these lines. I would say right now the adoption is more sticking a little bit with more smart glasses, such as like your RealWears and Vuzix, things along this nature. But as the form factors continue to evolve every 3 to 6 to 9 months, I think we're trying to position ourselves to say, okay, how do we lay the foundation on the software side and have strategic partners there while continuing to kind of update that to support the next form factors as the ergonomics get better and it becomes more comfortable to wear throughout the day and more of a part of that kind of connected worker tool set so they can work hands free.
Sure. Well, that's great. I mean, thank you so much thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and very insightful. And it's exciting to see things accelerate, even though sometimes we're accelerating things out of necessity that we did not otherwise forecast. So, really appreciate your time. It was a great talk. And if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to continue to type them into the box, and we'll pass along, or they can reach out directly. So, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Be safe.